let's pay off the house. That's what my mom said to my dad when she found out he had extra cash lying around. But was that such a great idea? To answer this, I've spent the past week diving into countless articles and videos, and what I found was truly surprising. Imagine two people, Jack and Mary. They both saved up $500,000 to spend on a new house. Jack chooses to invest his $500,000 all into the stock market and takes out a 30-year mortgage for the full amount. Mary chooses to buy her house in cash and doesn't take out a mortgage. Let's assume an 8% annual rate for both a 30-year mortgage and stock market returns. Who ends up better financially after 30 years? After 30 years, Jack's investment turns into $5.5 million. But he has to pay $820,000 in interest, plus $500,000 in principal for the house. This leaves him with $4 million. Mary only had to pay $500,000 and saves $820,000 in interest. But unlike Jack, since she had nothing invested, the house is all she has. This is an extreme example to highlight the difference between paying off your mortgage early and investing instead. In Jack's case, he pays interest on the mortgage but earns a lot more through investing. In Mary's case, she avoids the interest costs but misses out on a lot of potential investment gains. The point? Using other people's money is better than using your own money, so you don't need to pay off your mortgage so fast. This example is just the beginning, and what comes next will shift your reality. I have a question for you. If you pay off your house today instead of 15 years from now, does that make the value of the house go up faster? At the end of the day, a $500,000 house is a $500,000 house, regardless if you have a mortgage on it or not. And once you put money in your house, it's no longer liquid, meaning you can't get the money out easily. If you care about liquidity, real estate is not your friend. Stocks and bonds are much more liquid. So does that mean you should never pay it off early? Well, there are two rules of thumb that can help you decide whether to pay it off early or invest instead. Would you be in a rush to pay off your house if your mortgage rate was 0.01%? Probably not. Would you invest if your rate of return for investing is 100 times higher than your mortgage interest rate? Probably. As you can see, a large part of the decision comes down to mortgage interest rate and the investing rate of return. Currently, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate is about 7% per year. This means your investments have to beat 7% per year for you to come out on top. The S&P 500 index, which is a popular investment index that tells you the performance of the top 500 US companies, average about 10% per year, which is 3% higher than the interest rate. That means you should invest, right? Well, that depends on how you invest. If you invest in a taxable account, the 10% per year might only be 8% per year after the tax man gets his cut. A 1% margin of error might be a bit tight, especially since the market can be unpredictable. The general rule of thumb is the lower the interest rate on your mortgage, the better it is to invest. This is only one of the two rules. To show you the second rule, let me ask you this. If you have $100 to invest, do you want to put that $100 into the stock market when you are 5 years old or when you're 95 years old? 5, of course. In investing, there's a famous principle called compound interest, which basically means anything you earn will stack on top of itself to make you even more money. The earlier you start, the more powerful it is because it builds exponentially, not linearly. It's like a snowball rolling down the hill. This is the second rule of thumb. The more time you have, the more powerful compound interest is and the better it is to invest. Even though we have proved that paying off a mortgage often doesn't make sense, most of this conversation could be categorized under creative fiction. Not because what I said was nonsense, but because humans are not rational. I'll prove it to you. Have you ever stayed in a relationship for way too long? You knew it was bad for you, bad for the other person, and yet you stayed in it for the comfort. So, did my parents end up paying off the mortgage? Actually, yes. In retrospect, my mom's decision didn't make sense financially, but it made sense for her emotionally. And that's what she went with. So I guess the decision really comes down to what makes more sense for you. The peace of mind from paying it off early, or making the most you can with every dollar you got. If you want to pay it off earlier for that peace of mind, or you just want to save on interest, this next video will give you actionable advice to pay off your mortgage 2 times faster. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe.